it ain't never really that simple. Because if he wins in Denver, somebody gonna just say, well, just like in Seattle, he needed a team around him. He had a ready-made team. They gonna always be haters. But one thing you cannot do is you cannot hate on the run that Russell Wilson had in Seattle, starting when he was a third-round pick in the 2012 draft. And what he did over the last decade in Seattle was historic. And without further ado, we bring in Russell Wilson fan, Seahawks fan. I don't know what you are right now, Jason Johnson. The floor is yours, but I'll start by asking, are you still a Seahawks fan? Are you now migrating to Denver, or are you in the market for a new team? And you take that wherever you want to go.
I am currently, if I had a sword and a map, I am a sports Ronin. Okay, I am an NFL Ronin. I have no master. I have no dojo. I have no sensei. I don't know where to go. I am completely incapable of figuring out where to go. Yeah. I don't. And I want to put this in context first off, when I got a text message from Michael Smith yesterday, can't wait to have you on tomorrow. And I was like, yeah. I was like, cool, because I haven't talked to you guys since the Super Bowl. I hadn't even heard the news yet. I didn't hear the news until I pulled over, and 3 other people texted me and they're like, Jason, how do you feel? And then my car swerved. So I just want to put this in context as to how I'm feeling right now. My immediate thoughts is this is the craziest high-risk, high-reward decision I have seen an athlete take in 15 years. This is the craziest high-risk, high-reward thing I've seen since, like, Stephon Marbury left the NBA and went to China. Because if this works for Russell Wilson, and I'm not going to play with Richard Sherman, who dislikes him personally, and puts this sort of high goal. Getting to a Super Bowl is really hard. Getting to a Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow is extremely hard. I think that's really, really high end. I don't know that I think that's possible. But if Russell Wilson could get to an AFC championship in the AFC against all those young guns, that would literally catapult him potentially above Aaron Rodgers in the prestige sweepstakes, because he didn't leave. He didn't take the easy route. He actually took the more difficult route. This was not LeBron leaving the Eastern Conference to go to the Lakers. The Eastern Conference was stronger when he left. The competition was stronger in the East. This is literally going to the more difficult conference where everybody who is great is 7 to 8 years younger than you, and hoping that somehow you can make a difference. I think it's crazy. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't even know how success can be defined. But if Russell Wilson ends up with an MVP, or maybe winning the division one year over Patrick Mahomes, or maybe one day get into an AFC championship, this pushes him potentially ahead of Aaron Rodgers, who I think blew his last chance to make a Super Bowl last year. As far as the Seahawks go, and this is something that's even harder to comprehend, it is hubris. It is arrogance. It is foolishness. And I told you guys all year, they should have fired Pete Carroll and hired Brian Flores from jump. To choose 71-year-old Pete Carroll, who has had a power grab ever since Paul Allen left, is the hugest mistake possible. You talk about being a free agency destination. Look, the writing was on the wall about Seattle when Odell Beckham Jr. was like, nah, I'll pass. I'll be the third option on the Rams before I go to this moribund franchise running a 1998 offense. No one's going to want to go to Seattle anymore. DK Metcalf is going to be trying to escape the building. Bobby Wagner is saying deuce to disappearing like a gift. He's thrilled to be out of there. That place is going to be an absolute NFL crater for 5 years, and the only thing that people can look forward to is that Pete Carroll and John Snyder will be fired, and possibly that team sold because it's currently being run by a trustee as opposed to the man who actually bought the franchise.
You said it was hubris on the part of the Seahawks.
Absolute hubris.
Okay, last year, we've been talking about this for a year. I told you last year. You put out a list publicly. It's not if but when. There was no coming back from that, okay? But what I'm saying though is you pointed this out on Twitter. You know as well as anybody that Russell Wilson had a no trade clause. Denver was the
Yes.
team he wanted to go to. So when it comes to the deterioration of this relationship with the Athletic had a real interesting deep dive on how this relationship deteriorated over time and the irreconcilable differences that led to divorce. What role or how much blame does Russell Wilson bear for it not working in Seattle? I mean, it feels like if he wanted Pete Carroll up out of there, maybe he should have just said it instead of saying go Hawks.
Well, I think Russell Wilson probably figured out fairly early on, not just because he was concerned about his brand, but because of the power dynamics within the organization. Again, the team is being run by Jody Allen, who was a trustee, and there was never any indicator that she was actively involved in running the team before Paul Allen passed. So the de facto ruler, king, Thanos, controller of all power, has the gavel person in the Seahawks organization is Pete Carroll. Russell Wilson couldn't get rid of Pete Carroll because Pete Carroll is currently the Seahawks. So I don't think this is so much a deterioration as much as it is a realization, much as I didn't believe it. And there could be a supercut of me saying, I never thought this would happen. I never thought that they would trade him. I always assumed that Russell Wilson was probably just going to try and wait it out. But you know what? He doesn't want to be what Matt Stafford was before he went to the Rams. He doesn't want to be the Kevin Garnett. He doesn't want to be Phillip Rivers. Russell Wilson thinks, I've got 7 more years to play this game, and I don't want to waste it. Legacy franchise situation where I can't even compete for Super Bowl. And I'll be honest with you, I think of him, and it may seem strange, this is very Barack Obama-esque, okay? How is this Barack Obama-esque? Not because he necessarily has his Michelle, although he doesn't go sort of way. Barack Obama's like, I'm not going to wait for the party to pick me. I'm not going to wait for the Clintons and everybody else to sort of put a crown on me and say it's time. He said, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to push. Who cares if it's not my turn? Who cares what legacy says? I'm just going to push through and make it happen. Now, whether it works, it seems crazy now, right? In retrospect, we're like, yeah, of course Obama was a great president. It was a crazy idea when he decided to run when he did. Even the first time he ran for the Senate. That's what I think Russell Wilson is doing. He is not just betting on himself, but he is betting on a torn ACL, on Travis Kelce. He is betting on Josh Allen suddenly forgetting to learn how to play. He's betting on a lot of things for this to end up working. But I'm not mad at him. I'm always happy to see black players show some agency one way or another. And I think there's a lot of sportscasters out there, in particular non-African-American sportscasters, who are afraid to admit that he actually had a tremendous amount of agency and leverage in this situation, being one of only 2 quarterbacks in the entire NFL that has a no trade clause. The other being Deshaun Watson, who is not going to end up on the Seattle Seahawks. You can quote me on that, old takes exposed. I think they're only throwing out his name right now because the Seahawks know the season ticket holders are burning up their tickets.
You know what, Doc? I think I need to push back on this notion of risk for Russell Wilson. And you brought up the Barack Obama example. In retrospect, we can see that it wasn't that crazy at all for Obama.
Right.
Ivy League educated brother with some charisma. Hey, I got some New York Times bestsellers on the list. I could turn a phrase. So he's got some things going for him. And maybe I'm a better speech maker and deliverer than Hillary Clinton, my competition. The country is ready for me. I got a team on the ground that will change campaigning, that's a little modern. So when we look back, it was like, of course, at the time it looked crazy, but when we look back, it wasn't crazy at all. And same thing with Russell Wilson. Look, man, he goes to a team. We've heard you complain about Ken Norton. They fired him. Why? Defense was bad. He's going to a team that has a good defense. They got an offensive line. They got weapons. It ain't crazy. Why wouldn't it work?
It is crazy.
It work.
It is crazy.
Why?
It's crazy.
Why?
Because you got Patrick Mahomes. Look, if Barack Obama had decided that he was going to jump in, I mean, he was going against Hillary Clinton, okay? She was the big dog. She was the legacy person. She was the person that had already been in the White House, who was popular, who was Woman of the Year, that sort of thing. It is crazy to say that you want to go head-to-head with Patrick Mahomes, but here's the thing. What Russell Wilson potentially does here, if he can win, okay, is he shows, hey, this old dog ain't out the pasture yet. He's not. If he can go into the AFC and start whooping up on these young guns, show them that this old cat still got some game that he can play, that will enhance his legacy. Because if you look at what Aaron Rodgers is doing, he's staying in a safe division.
Well, Jason, number one, Russell Wilson just left the toughest division in the NFL. Okay,
That's true.
now he goes and makes
with the Super Bowl champ.
Right. Okay, he goes and makes the West, the AFC West instead of the NFC West, now the toughest division in the NFL. That's number one. Number two, Tom Brady went to the NFC South after leaving the cozy confines in the AFC East. I'm not saying Russell's Tom Brady, but you saw how that worked out in Tampa, and they didn't even win the division the year they won the Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford, okay, goes from Detroit, obviously, to the Rams, entering the toughest division. They end up winning the Super Bowl in the first year. So Russell is restless. His biological clock is ticking, as 2 years in a row he has sat next to Roger Goodell and talked and presented the NFL Man of the Year award to somebody while somebody else is playing in the Super Bowl. But here's the thing. I think it's not as daunting. And Michael, I'm bullish on the Broncos. I liked them last year when they had Teddy Bridgewater. I'm bullish on the Broncos. But he ain't got to go through everybody. It's not like, it's not like Street Fighter where you gotta go against Josh Allen 1 week in the playoffs and then Joe Burrow and then Lamar Jackson. Like, nah, you know what? If this plays right, he might have 2 or 3 of them maybe. And it might be in Denver, which is a hard place to play. But back to Seattle though, bro. And maybe, I don't know if y'all saw this. I want to tee it up with this. Michael, this is why I know I could be a GM. Any of us could be a GM. Because they got some idiot ones out here, okay? Some GM who probably either has a quarterback or doesn't have the credibility to put his name to this, told The Athletic, quote, "I think it's a reach by Denver for a player past his prime who is a below average leader." Come on now. I mean, this is the guy who not that long ago was a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. These are the people making decisions in pro football. These are the people making decisions. But maybe this is my GM wannabe hat on that I'm looking at, and I know you're looking at it from a Seahawks fan and as somebody who's following the team closely, day in and day out, Jason. I think Seattle made out great, all things considered. You had a quarterback that you were at odds with, a quarterback who, again, I'll remind y'all again, had a list, okay? Were you going to pay him in 2 years? He's only getting older. You got 2 1s, 2 2s, and 3 players for him. Forget about the quarterback. Forget about Drew Lock. But nonetheless, you got as much as you possibly could have gotten for a player who didn't want to be there, who you were at odds with, and to bring it full circle, Jason, had a no-trade clause. So regardless of what the Commanders offered him, he was only going to go where he wanted to go. What else? Seattle did as well as it possibly could, short of them working it out and him staying and being a quarterback, but that wasn't going to happen.
I don't care if they had 2 1s, 2 2s, 5 12s, or 4 impossible, okay? It doesn't matter. It was not ultimately a good trade. It was a bad trade. And
what's the alternative? Tell me the alternative.
The alternative was to fire your coach and to hire someone. You
think that would have kept him?
Understood.
You feel like, so it's that simple. You feel like that Russell Wilson would have been just fine with that roster, that GM, and it's still in that city.
Yes. Yes.
If they fired a coach. Well, he should have said it. I would have loved to hear that from him instead of you.
Greg Olsen did a great interview. I did this great interview with Greg Olsen, who was probably kind of speaking for Russell Wilson. He did a great interview yesterday talking about the trade. And he said, look, the roster wasn't necessarily the problem. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are a top 3, top 5 wide receiver combo. They could straighten up what was going on with the running game. They had defensive pieces with Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams. It was the
philosophy.
It was the philosophy that was a problem. And if they had said, look, we're going to replace Pete Carroll. He has done his time, but his philosophy is done and dated. It's not working. I think Russell Wilson would have been happy to stay and work it out with a new offensive-minded coach, or at least a defensive-minded coach who was not playing 1992 Tecmo Bowl. And that's what you have with Pete Carroll. There is no reason to believe that Pete Carroll, with all of these chips and all of these pieces, knows how to play. You can get somebody the biggest Lego set in the world. It doesn't mean they can make the Death Star. I don't think Pete Carroll and John. I'm
not saying Pete Carroll and his choices for offensive and defensive coordinator, as the case may be, but mostly offensive coordinator, which, by the way, Russell was a part of that process last year. I'm not saying that that's not a part of this, but it feels like this has been a longer time coming than people realize. Like, they outgrew each other. This wasn't just the Seahawks mismanaging it and giving poor Russell Wilson no choice but to go find a better situation. Russell Wilson had his own idiosyncrasies, his own agenda, his own objectives where he wanted to move. and he'd been wanting to move. And it wasn't just last year. So that's why I'm saying it was like everything ends badly, otherwise it wouldn't end. They had to go their separate ways, and the Seahawks got quite a bit in return.
But the alternative is, again, you get rid of that coach and you can stay competitive in that particular division. The alternative is being in the wilderness where you don't have a quarterback and you don't appear to be a destination that people want to go to. Russell Wilson made Seattle the kind of place that people wanted to play. Look, if Von Miller decides that he wants to come back to Denver, I think they got Percy Harvin when they were there. They got Quandre. They had some players that they mentioned. I mean, Jamal Adams was thrilled to join the team. You had some great players come to Seattle because
Jamal Adams didn't want to be in New York, and Jamal Adams wanted to get paid. but listen, I'm sure Russell Wilson made it. Listen, Russell Wilson and the winning that they did certainly helped when it came to people wanting to come to Seattle. But more than, and this is probably where the philosophical or the paradigm is different. I'm not here to represent the team, Jason, but I think they look at it from an organizational philosophy and say, no, as an organization, we won. You know, when we went to back-to-back Super Bowls, we went to the playoffs every year. It wasn't because of the quarterback who made water in the wine. You know what I'm saying? So I think part of it, they did not want to pay him yet again. They didn't want to go through that contract dance with him again where he's going to ask for $45, $50 million or a market-setting contract when he's 35 years old at the expense of the rest of the roster. That may be the hubris you're talking about right there.
To quote the rival of the man who we honor today, forget Jody Allen, forget John Snyder, forget Pete Carroll as a staff label and an organization.
Label and a crew.
Okay, like no,
that's not Biggie. That's not Biggie. That's Pac, but that's okay. That quote will always.
The rival, the man that we're on.
The rival. Yeah. My bad. You on it? You on it?
That was wise on their behalf because again, you don't let great talent walk out the door. Okay, and the only reason that great talent wants to leave is because the management of the organization is not capitalizing on his best years. You've got to go with the once-in-a-generation talent, not 3 generations past coaching philosophy. That's why it's not a smart move for them. The Seattle Seahawks are going to be in the bottom. They're going to be below Trey Lance. They're going to be below Matt Stafford. They're going to be below Kyler Murray. They are going to be in the absolute dregs. In 3 years, we're going to be talking about the Seattle Seahawks the same way we used to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. And that's going to be a problem for them. There was no way in which you could say that this is a smart idea. And the other issue, and I think when you talk about compare what happens with Pete, what happens with Russell, Russell has a chance this year, and this is a rare thing. He has a chance this season to do something that only 4 quarterbacks have ever done, and that is beat every single team in the NFL.
Oh, yeah. Well,
he beats the Seattle Seahawks and the Chargers.
I would love to see, before we make that declaration about what Seattle's going to be, like a wasteland, like a Siberia, NFL Siberia, I would love to see what they do this offseason and with those picks, who they get to play quarterback. That's number one. Number two, again, I think that where we part company, Jason, is the idea. And again, what I'm saying is not a departure from what you've been saying the last 2 days, or at least the little that you put out on Twitter, is that this was not Seattle just deciding unilaterally, we're just going to blow this thing up. Like, this was a long time coming. This was the inevitable conclusion to a deteriorating relationship, and this was a mutual, I'm preaching to the choir here, I know, a mutual decision. Yeah. So I'm not saying it was a smart idea. In a perfect world, yes, you keep Russell Wilson in a perfect world for the very same reason that we're putting Denver in a contender conversation. That perfect world doesn't exist. So they made the best of a bad situation by moving him where he wanted to go and getting enough picks to hit the rebuild, to rebuild this thing quickly.
Yeah, and I can't imagine Pete Carroll at this stage of his career is really eager or enthusiastic about rebuilding. Like, is he the man for a rebuilding team? He's never really done that in his career. And he's had a Hall of Fame career, but he's never been that coach who has come in and started from nothing and built him up, not rebuilding. Now, he has started off with hey, we have a bad situation, and now you come in and bring your thing to it. But now you've gone from a champion to nothing, and now Pete, bring it back up. We'll see. We'll see. He's never been asked to do it. We don't know if he's able to do it. But let me ask you this, Jason. How far do you want to go back? Because I just want to, this is my last thing for you. You start off by saying Pete Carroll has a 1998 offense. Then you went back to 1992 Tecmo Bowl. Can we get to the eight? Like, how far are we going to go back on the Seattle offense? How bad is it?
This is how bad it is. This is how bad it is. That he is literally operating off of offensive philosophies that are significantly older than some of the oldest players on his team. Okay, that he is operating from an offensive standpoint that doesn't make any sense. That he is operating from a lens about how football functions. It is not about some smothering defense anymore. Okay, nobody really wins that way. What it is a defense that gets turnovers and stops explosive plays, which is what you have with the Rams. The smothering defense thing, we had the Ravens and we had the Legion of Boom for about 2 years. That is an old school. That's 1979. I'll go back that far. My birthday is on Monday. I can go back that far. That is 1970s, where you would have NFL games that were 16-13, and that was considered a scoregami, right? That's what Pete Carroll seems to be imagining that he can recreate. But you can't have that in the modern NFL. You can't have that when you have quarterbacks that average 30, 35 touchdowns a game. That's the problem with Pete Carroll. And I'll say this, while I do admit, and Michael, what you were saying before, yes, this is a mutual. I agree it's mutual. You got to have the player. You have to have some kind of agency. But the other issue that I see with this is that even if it was a long time coming, it was completely avoidable. And that's the mistake that they have here. You can have two people who are heading towards divorce for years and years and years. The husband's like, I need more quality time. The wife is like, we need more vacation. Somebody could have stepped in and said, you know what? Let's take a vacation. And they didn't do it.
It's like when your woman decided to cheat with me. Don't blame me. Look at her. Like, what did you do wrong? Like, she had a wandering eye because you weren't taking care of business at home. The one thing you haven't pointed out about the Broncos, and I got one more thing for you, Jason, before we let you go. One thing we haven't pointed out the Broncos, just as an aside, is they do have a rookie coach who we have not seen be a head coach. We have seen Nathaniel Hackett work within the Aaron Rodgers ecosystem, but that's probably the biggest question mark of all. Talking about head coach, we're complaining about Pete Carroll. They got a guy that hasn't coached at all at the NFL level as a head coach. Former Packers offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have my concerns about that, my absolutely legitimate concerns. But what we've seen in these last couple of years with LaFleur, with Zach in Cincinnati and everything else like that, if you put together a good roster, most of these people are going to be reasonably competent if you put together a good roster. And so if the roster is functional and you have that level of a quarterback, they should be able to be competitive. Look, I watched Andy Reid for 14 years, okay, when he was with Philadelphia. I've seen what he does. He can be outcoached, right? I mean, he can be outcoached. I don't know that the coach of the San Diego Chargers is a genius. We don't know what's going to be the situation with Las Vegas. So I don't know that there's necessarily a massive coaching advantage. I don't know really who the best coach is in the AFC. It's probably still Bill Belichick, but he doesn't have the talent. I would be much less concerned about the coaching, talk about the structure, is the coaching with the Broncos than I am about perhaps ownership. Like, I don't know if this team faces a shift if they end up getting sold to Robert Smith. I don't know if this team faces a shift if Byron Allen comes in and buys them. That's the thing I would think about more than the coaching.
Well, the price just went up. All right. It's been good kicking it with you as always, man. Long time coming. But on the way out, what's it going to take for somebody to buy your loyalty? If somebody is like, we need Jason Johnson to rep our brand. Who's your squad?
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Like, what are you looking for in a team? What are you searching for? What are you swiping right looking for?
As I'm swiping left and right on teams, I need me either a black quarterback or a black coach. I will be taking a look at the coaching staff. I mean, as much as I criticize Pat Stafford, I got to give Sean McVay credit. Half of that coaching staff was African American. Yeah, 21 coaches, half are African American. I had to give him credit for that. So I'm looking for a black coach, black staff, black quarterback. It's gonna be a process for me. I'm open.
You might be single. That's why you might be single for a while. You gotta lower your standards. You gotta have all his teeth. Gotta have good credit. Can't have no outside kids. Gotta have. I mean, like that's just. Gotta have a job.
I want to tell you this.
Like that's a lot, man. Gotta be 6'2". That's a lot. Come on.
I'm saying.
Doc, you talking about, hey, Doc, you talking about, you looking for a black coach. We ain't talking about the NBA. It's the NFL. Like, you ain't got many options. You talking about the NFL.
You just gonna be agnostic. That checklist you had, you ain't got no team.
Currently
for the Texans. Texans are out.
Depending on how so yeah, I don't have many options for a black coach. If the Steelers got themselves a quarterback, I may go to
Steelers. It's the Steelers. Hey, thanks for watching Brother from Another on YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe before you leave, and be sure to watch us 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Peacock. Appreciate you.